Welcome back to Don't Repeat What Mommy Says. Today we're talking diet and nutrition.
Diet and nutrition.
And I think we kind of talked, this one will probably go a little while, so this might end up being a two-parter. But we were going to start with, did you want to start with like right at the beginning at pregnancy, or do you want to start with like little kids?
I don't know. Do people really need to know anything like right at the beginning? Like,
I don't know. I feel like pregnancy nutrition is one of those things like your doctor's going to beat you over the head over with all the
oh,
things you can and
oh, you're
can't
talking
eat.
about pregnancy nutrition? Shit.
Yeah. I mean, I
Really?
don't think we
Okay.
need to talk about like baby
I don't
nutrition.
feel like we need to pile on pregnant ladies. They have enough to worry about. Like, just eat, ladies. I mean,
Yeah,
if your doctor tells you don't eat lunch meat, fine, don't do that. But whatever.
I think for the most part, your doctor's going to tell you what you should or shouldn't eat. And I have noticed that that does vary a lot by culture with what's considered safe. So talk with your doctor. That's up to you. I think as far as that, I just wouldn't stress about it. Eat when you're hungry. Maybe try to eat something nutritious. But if all you can stomach is saltines, that's what you take a prenatal for.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little more careful about what I ate the second time around, only because I got so fat the first time. So that was a personal choice. But I mean, I still ate when I was hungry. I just tried to eat more nutritious food because the first time around, I lived on
Yeah,
king size Snickers and RC Cola, which is probably not healthy for me or the baby. And, you know,
yeah. I think when I was pregnant with Henry, I definitely ate way too much because with him, I weighed the same both times I gave birth, but with him, I gained from my pre-pregnancy weight like 60 pounds or something, or 50 pounds. With Ava, I only actually gained like 35, 40 pounds. But
yeah,
my
I did the
pre-pregnancy
same.
weight was higher, so
I gained like 70 with your sister, and it was like 35 or 40 pounds with you.
yeah,
So,
so
but I had a more active job because I worked both times, and I was waitressing when I was pregnant with you. So, I mean, I was more active because when I had Paige, I was in sales and marketing. So I pretty much sat all the time. So that probably helped too. So I would say if you can, be a little, I don't want to say like go crazy with the activity, but, staying active while pregnant is nice too. And I had an easier. Well, the delivery was hard because you were stuck, but I mean the actual delivery part, like the getting you out, was
yeah.
easier than your sister, and I think it was just because I was in better shape.
Yeah, I think staying active really has more to do with the easiness. Now, we did kind of mention, I think, in the pregnancy one that being anemic, iron deficiency anemia specifically, does put you at a greater risk of postpartum hemorrhage. So try to eat some more iron-rich foods if you can. But again, a prenatal with iron is a great option too. They are going to probably check your hemoglobin levels in pregnancy, so they should
Mm,
already be aware.
yeah.
So I think in terms of like pregnancy, that's more of a you're going to hear too much of it from your doctor more than you probably ever want to know. So we don't
Yeah.
need to pile on there too much.
I don't even know what the recommendations are anymore anyway, because like I said, back when I had kids, I don't know if we didn't know or they just, I don't, we didn't know anything. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
So I got nothing to add to that anyway. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do. But I will say this, if you want ice cream, just eat that ice cream because I think that's still safe for pregnant ladies, right?
Yeah. Ice cream's still safe. Their biggest thing is like the unpasteurized things, so like your soft cheeses that are made with unpasteurized milk, lunch meat, pretty much anything that's a high risk for listeria. They want you to cook it, or if it's a vegetable or fruit, which do have listeria risk sometimes, just wash it. Um,
And pro tip, if you wash your vegetables and fruit in vinegar, it keeps your fruit and vegetable longer, and it is also antibacterial, right? Vinegar,
it's
I think.
I believe it's antibacterial. It's also antifungal. That's why it works so well.
Okay.
Is white vinegar will actually kill mold spores,
Yeah.
so it
And it
keeps your
doesn't
fruit
make
fresh
your,
longer. Because.
yeah, it doesn't make it taste like vinegar either. So don't be afraid to. I still wash my fruit and vegetables with vinegar.
Oh yeah, when I get so like if we're moving on from that into like little kids eating, when I get produce, because my toddler can get into our fridge, I always try to prep it. So I'll wash all the grapes in vinegar, rinse them out, and then put them in a little container. And then I got a cherry pitter, and I love my cherry pitter. It was
Yeah,
you who gave me the idea. I got
yeah,
one
I
that
love
does
my cherry
seven
pitter.
cherries at a
Yeah, mine
time.
only does 4.
But when I get
But
a bag of cherries, I wash them all and then I pit all of the cherries and put them in the fridge so Henry can just go in and get them without worrying
mhm.
about him choking on a cherry pit. Just a pain
Right,
in the
because
butt, but
I didn't have a cherry pitter when you guys were growing up, so you didn't get to have cherries until you were older.
yeah, and my kid loves cherries. I would feel so bad if I couldn't give them to him. So, little people, um, their nutritional needs are really different than adults. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the stuff they've heard about nutrition from people who are more talking about adults and they try to push it on their kids, really.
Mhm.
So, one that I've seen is like people trying to go low carb, no carb with their kids, or the people who try to do like really high protein, or the other end of the spectrum, the people who want to do like vegetarian and vegan diets. Um, so I think the first thing I want to say on that is like kids need a complete diet. They need complete proteins, they need fruits, they need vegetables, and they do need carbohydrates in some form. I'm not saying you have to give them white bread, but they do need carbs. I think one study I was looking at today said 50% of a child, like a prepubescent child's calorie intake, should be carbohydrates.
Right, and so if you're worried about the bad carbs, I'll tell you how to get good carbs to your kids. And this goes for yourself too. If you haven't decided to give up carbs, um, complex carbohydrates are what you need. So potatoes are very good. They're very good for children and they're very good for not children. And I'll tell you why. It's a complex carbohydrate. And all that means, I don't know what. All right, so the carbs.
Carbs, you were talking about carbs.
Right, complex carbohydrates. What that does, simple carbohydrates are like sugar, white bread, white pasta, white rice, anything white in the carb, except for potatoes, because you can eat the white potatoes. But I mean, you can eat any of those carbs, but those are simple carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Whew. Uh, the difference is how fast they burn. So, simple carbs burn very quickly, which sounds like that would be desirable, but it's not. And this is why. Because you're not gonna, unless you're running a marathon or something like that, you're not gonna burn all of that off, and then your body stores it as fat. So that is why simple carbs. That's why you'll see, those honey shooters. Have
Mm-hmm.
you seen those? Okay, they really came up with those for people who do like marathons and stuff like that because they need a quick source of carbs right now. So a complex carb burns slower. So so it'd be great like before you run, if you do 5Ks or whatever, it'd be good to have some complex carbs maybe an hour before you're going to do those activities. But if you're doing some hardcore like endurance type stuff, that's why you'll see people in marathons doing a honey shooter because they're like starting to feel it.
Another great use for honey shooters is in labor.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
because that's another time where those fast carbs can be really helpful because you do need the energy. And
Hmm.
if you're like on Pitocin or something, sometimes they won't let you eat or they don't want you to eat. They can't physically stop you, but you know.
No, they can't.
But if they want you on clear fluids or whatever, popsicles, soda, I know that doesn't sound like the healthiest choice, but they are those fast burning carbs.
Well, and if you have a kid who plays sports, like like Aaliyah plays soccer or sports like those, it's those little honey shooters. Keep those for like when they get their little break or whatever. If they're starting to look tired, that'll give them the perk, so that's good. But the complex carbs, the reason potatoes, like a lot of people shy away from potatoes, the reason they're so good, particularly white potatoes, they have more potassium than a banana. They actually are the highest potassium food. So if you're worried about electrolytes and stuff like that, white potatoes are really good. But again, everything's portions. So like know your portions. I don't know what the proportions are for little kids, but you'd have to look that up for yourself. I really don't know because I haven't had little kids in a long time.
Well, and so talking about like the types of carbs and stuff, I've seen a lot of people who don't want their children to have sugar until a certain age. And with that push, which if you don't want your kid to have like, refined
Refined
sugars,
sugar.
that's totally fine. However, here's a caveat, and I learned this from watching her channel is Dr. Beachgem. She's a pediatric ER doctor. She was talking about when kids are sick, specifically when they have vomiting, diarrhea, um, to not use homemade versions of Pedialyte solutions that are sugar free because kids are very sensitive to blood sugar drops, especially very little kids like toddlers and babies. So the reason they recommend Pedialyte is because it has that sugar to keep their blood sugar levels high enough that they don't end up hypoglycemic, which can make them seem, extra sleepy, lethargic. It's just not good.
Right, and so the old moms, like I'm talking older than me, that was always their go-to. Like if your kid had an upset stomach, they would give you ginger ale. And then, so that would be like my grandmother's generation. And then my mom, by my mom's generation, it was like Sprite or 7 Up. And that's why the sugar in it keeps your kid from their sugar dropping like that. So it's important stuff for a lot
Yeah,
of
and
people.
if Pedialyte, so like for toddlers, Pedialyte's a great choice. For infants, formula fed infants, a lot of times they'll recommend Pedialyte if they have an upset stomach, because it's a little gentler than formula, but it still keeps the sugar up. For breastfed babies, they actually recommend you just continue breastfeeding. You can offer Pedialyte supplementally, but your breast milk will actually change in composition when your baby's sick to have more sugar to keep their sugar up and to keep their hydration up.
Right. So if you don't want your child to have refined sugar, that's okay. They're not going to get addicted to it because they had it in this instance where they were sick.
Absolutely.
So, I know you're doing that because you want the best for your baby, but in that instance, it's okay to give them the sugar. It's actually recommended. So,
Yes, sugar, and another one that I've seen some people kind of freak out about for babies over 1, they will use medically honey if your kid has swallowed like a battery because it protects the intestinal lining in the throat and stuff from being damaged by battery acid. Um, but that's another one I've seen people like not really wanting to give it to their kids, but I'm like, it's a medical situation in that instance. It's less about the sugar and more about what is it giving their body that's helping them.
and that's one of those cases where it's a risk reward thing. Like
Yeah,
the battery acid is worse than the potential botulism because that's actually why children before 1 aren't supposed to have honey.
well, and they don't recommend the honey before the age of 1. I think they recommend basically sugar water if they're under 1. But in a pinch, you're better off giving them the honey than not.
Can you give
If
them
you,
like agave nectar, I wonder?
I wonder if you could, I would have to look that up, but I know,
I
like,
would have to look that up too. But, well, you look it up. I'm not going to. I don't care. But
obviously the best choice is to not let your kid get a hold of a button battery specifically that they can swallow.
true. But
But
if it happens, call
things
poison
happen.
control.
Call 911. If they swallow a button battery, just call 911. Don't bother
Well,
with
call
poison control.
911 and call poison control because it takes a little while for them to get there, and poison control can tell you what to do at home.
True.
Seriously, because I had to call poison control before. And actually, poison control will call 911 for you.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, because I called and I was like, I don't know. And they're like, do you want me to dial 911 for you, ma'am? I'm like, they're like, yeah, maybe we better because we're not sure. Because it was cologne that you drank and they weren't sure. They couldn't find all the ingredients of the particular cologne. So they're like, we're not really sure. There's not. So they called 911 for me. So, but poison control can help you if they know what's in it, like what you can do to counteract it until the ambulance can get there. So,
Yeah.
but if
So,
you don't know poison control's number, it's fine. Call 911. They can help you too.
yeah, and if you want to be ahead of the game and you don't know poison control's number, like obviously you can look it up. Your pediatrician might also have, like mine has magnets they give to new parents that have poison control's number on the little magnet, so you can have it on your fridge. But
Yeah, those are things you never think you're going to have to do, and then you end up calling poison control, and you find out your toddler's just drunk because evidently the cologne just had a very high alcohol content. That was the only thing harmful in it. So
Yeah. Um,
she got intoxicated at 2, or
oops.
like a year
Oh
and a
my
half.
God. We gotta do a whole episode in a little bit about like crazy baby products, talking about like people intoxicating their children, because I watched some shit earlier that
Yeah,
was
and do
wild.
not like, and that is, so we're talking about nutrition, obviously, and these are things you don't want your children to have. But honestly, if your kid does get a hold of something that has alcohol in it, it is serious.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially a kid that little, even though it was a cologne and she only drank a little bit of it and she was okay. But a little bit of alcohol can make their blood alcohol content very high because they're very little, and it can be fatal. So
Yes.
if you have a drink laying around and kid drinks your drink, err on the side of caution and get them checked out because, yeah, I didn't know. But, she drank the cologne. We got to the hospital. We found out the only thing in it that could really hurt her was the alcohol. So they wanted to take her blood alcohol content, just to make sure it wasn't like at a serious level, which she was okay. But they told me that it's a very little bit of alcohol for a small child like that can be fatal. So,
Hmm. So definitely something to consider.
yeah, don't leave your drinks
But
around unattended with small people.
but circling back to like nutrition and things. So one thing I see a lot, especially in the meals group, I see moms freaking out about their kids not eating enough protein. So I want to start on this end of the spectrum before we go to the other end of the spectrum. Um, but I saw something recently and they were like, you can make these bars and you can add protein powder and do all this to get your kids protein boosted. If you have a kid who has a nutrition issue, like they've got some sort of failure to thrive or something, or some sort of restrictive eating, like sensory issues where they only eat certain foods and they need extra protein, like you are not the people I'm talking to. The people with the kids who just eat like an average kid, they're not going to eat a whole lot of meat and stuff. Please quit panicking about how much protein your kid needs. So I actually looked it up after I saw that because it's like people always freak out about the salt, especially with kids under like 2 or 3. They should eat low sodium or no sodium, avoid the salt, no salt, because it's hard on their kidneys. Because kids have very underdeveloped kidneys from birth until about, I want to say it's 3, but I could be wrong. So they always recommend against salt. High protein is also damaging to your kidneys.
Yes.
Um, so I actually did the research and I pulled it up here just to quote it. It's from Cleveland Clinic, but I've seen it on a few other like children's hospitals and stuff talking about nutrition, where they actually talk about the amount of protein per day that is recommended for children. And for children under the age of 3, they're only recommended like max 13 grams of protein a day for a healthy kid.
Yeah.
So that's not
So it's
very
not a lot of
much.
protein. So if your kid eats some eggs in the morning,
Yeah, some
that's
eggs.
that's probably, I don't remember how many grams of protein are in an egg, but probably
Hold
like,
on.
what, 8
Grams
maybe?
of protein per egg. So, and some days your kids are going to eat more or less too, and that's fine too. Like, I wouldn't think of 13 grams of protein as a hard and fast number, but just know that your kids don't need a ton. So, there's about 6 grams of protein in a large
Okay,
egg.
so I was 2 grams off. I was pretty good there.
So, if your kid eats 2 eggs a day, they've gotten all the protein they need for an entire day if they're under the age of 3. From the ages of 4 to 8, it's 15 grams. So, you know,
And that goes for like pancakes and stuff too, because you put eggs in the pancake, and that protein still counts. So I know you think of it as carbs, but that it's a carb, but there is eggs in the pancake usually, like in the pancake batter.
absolutely. And I mean, kids are
Milk,
getting protein from a lot of sources. So if they're still
milk.
drinking milk, if they eat cheese, if they, like my son is obsessed with those Farmer John sausages. He could eat like, I have to make a whole package, like 8 of them, for just me and him because he'll eat like 5. But
So yeah, so just their nutritional needs are not the same as adults, and they don't need as much protein as we do.
yeah,
They're
so
very active and they're growing and their brains are growing. So also fat. your children need good sources of fat. It's very important. Their brains are growing.
And if you have a kid who's especially under 3, so under 3 as a species, humans are still considered in infancy. It's a huge time of brain development. So if you notice your kid's getting fussier, they're waking up more often through the night, there's a good chance it's because they're going through some sort of cognitive leap, is what they call it, where they have like a big period of brain development all at once. Um, a good way to combat that are healthy sources of fats. So, like for Henry, when he was doing that around like 8 months old, we did a lot of fish, avocados, olive oil. I actually made like a whole dinner based around like healthy fats for your brain just to get all of those in, and it will help with some of that fussiness and sleep disturbances to be able to be getting that fat because your brain needs that to develop properly.
Yeah. Yeah, those are important things. I think as parents, it seems that food and whether or not your child is getting enough nutrition for us moms is like the biggest worry for many years of a child's life. And every one of us thinks our kid is not getting enough. You know, like I don't know any mom that didn't go through at least a period of their kid's childhood where they were like, "Oh my God, like they're not getting enough nutrition." And they're going to be okay. You know, just offer the food. Again, we've talked about that. Offer healthy foods, and healthy meaning good complex carbohydrates. Very important. If you give your kid a cookie, it's going to be okay. If you choose not to, that'll be okay too. And the you don't need to load them up on protein. They're probably getting enough of that. And but the good fat is pretty important.
Yeah, and so obviously there's always the caveat. There are always going to be the kids who fall outside of this. So if that is your kid, disregard this. But
Well, and if it is your kid, you probably talked about it with your doctor. Obviously, follow your doctor's recommendations.
right, but for the most part, kids, younger kids, as they get older, that's where you start to see the issues with food, relationships with food. It's how you've shaped food in the younger years. For the most part, kids are intuitive eaters. They know when they need to eat. They know, when they're full. So if they're telling you they're full, don't keep pushing one more bite because you think they're not getting enough, because that is what creates issues down the line. Because they'll go one of two ways. Either they're not going to eat at all because you're always pressuring them about eating, or they're going to become these kids who have to
Won't
clear their
stop
plate
eating.
and then they struggle with weight. So,
And you just don't make food such a big deal because they will use it to control you, and that is actually where the root of eating disorders start. Because what you cannot do is make your child eat unless you're abusive and you get a funnel, So seriously, and so
yeah.
they learn that they can control you, your emotions, how you're acting, what you do by them eating or not eating, and it becomes their way to control the world around them, and it's not healthy. So, and I only know that because I had a daughter who was very, very tiny. She didn't eat a lot, and I was terrified that she was going to die because she just didn't weigh anything. Like she was very tiny,
Yeah.
and she did start doing that with like controlling the people around her with food, and she knew it upset me when she didn't eat and all of that stuff. So I took her to a pediatrician, and I was lucky enough that he happened to specialize in eating disorders for peds. And he was the one that told me that. And he was like, "You've got to stop. Like, offer the food. If she doesn't eat the food, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Just, let her leave the table." And I'm like, "But you don't understand. She's not going to eat. She's going to die." And he's like, "I promise you, she's not going to die. She's not going to starve herself." And I didn't believe him, but I was like, "All right, I'm going to give it a try. I guess he's the expert." He was right. She did not starve. She is 31 today. She is still alive. She eats. And we never had fights at meals anymore. We just kind of left it alone, and she started eating more normally after that. So,
Well, and in the vein of kids being intuitive eaters, because the other thing I see is my kid only eats junk food. You are the one who does the shopping.
yeah.
So, outside of kids with food disorders where they're struggling with textures, what's
They're fighting it.
available is what they can eat.
Right, quit
Huh?
buying it. I
Right,
said
quit
quit
buying it.
buying
If
it.
you don't want your kid eating 6 ho-hos a day, I mean, I'm not saying you don't even have to quit, or, wow, that came out wrong. I'm not saying you even have to necessarily quit buying it. Quit making it available to them. Because most kids, even though they're intuitive eaters in terms of when they're hungry and when they're full, if you give them the option between broccoli and a cupcake, they're almost always going to pick the cupcake. But if you want them to have a snack and you say, hey, you can have the carrots or the broccoli or whatever, have a yogurt, then those are the options you've laid out for them.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I never understood that either. Well, my kid just eats this because Paige does that. She
mhm.
hasn't done it as much because she quit buying it finally. But I was like, "You're shopping. Like, why does she have all this candy available?
Well, and for a
Stop buying
while
it."
with Henry, I was putting the like sometimes snacks up high. The problem is now he can climb up to get them. But for a while, I had like sometimes snacks were up high, all the time snacks were down low. So if he did want to go in and grab something for himself, he could just grab it. Now he climbs like all over the place. So the only snacks I really have that are like you have to ask to get one of these is like the M&Ms. They're on top of the fridge because he can't get up there.
Well, here's the thing. When I was growing up, there wasn't junk food in the house very often. I if we wanted a snack, there was fruit, there was vegetables, there were things like that. We did not even have sugary cereal. Like, we just didn't have that in the house. My mom didn't buy it, you know. And then occasionally she used to buy the alphabets, which do have sugar on them. We're like, oh, it must be like a special day. We get alphabets. You know, she'd buy one box, and when that was gone, we were back to like puffed wheat or whatever the hell she was buying. You know what I mean? So I grew up where, and I'm not saying there was never sweets. She baked once in a while, and so we would eat cookies like when she baked cookies, but it was once in a while. And I'm really not one to eat stuff like that very much because I didn't grow up like that. Like, I would rather grab a plate of cheese and olives for a snack than a muffin. Like, you will never see me eat a muffin.
Well, and if you are somebody with littler kids and you're finding that like you're making a new food and they're continuously avoiding it or not eating it, so like hard boiled eggs. My son loves eggs. He's never really eaten hard boiled eggs. He just doesn't recognize them as a food. But one thing you can do to kind of encourage them to try it, let them help you make it. Because for a lot of kids, they'll want to take a taste because they just worked on it. That was their work. They did something. Now they want to try it. So my son was helping me peel hard boiled eggs yesterday. And he asked, can I take a bite? And I was like, yeah, sure. He ended up eating a whole hard boiled egg. So
And
that's a
like
good, you know.
Aaliyah loves hard boiled eggs, but she doesn't eat the yolks. She only eats the whites.
Oh, Henry ate the whole thing like it was an
Yeah, no,
apple.
Aaliyah
Just,
doesn't. Aaliyah has like a texture thing, so she
and I
doesn't.
get that. That's why I don't like runny eggs. It's not the taste, it's the texture of a
Yeah,
runny egg yolk. Like, ugh.
yeah. So she doesn't eat the yolks. So she'll eat the whites, and then she gives me the yolks. So, but egg yolks are good for you. Just so you know, I know a lot of people think that it's not. It is. And cholesterol, a high cholesterol food does not give you high cholesterol. If you don't believe me, Google it because I actually do know what I'm talking about. I went to school for this. So, high cholesterol foods do not give you cholesterol. So the yolks of the eggs are very good for you. And I believe, but don't quote me on this, but I think I read somewhere one time that there's something in the yolk of eggs that helps with preventing breast cancer. But don't just eat egg yolks and think you'll never get breast cancer, because that's not. I didn't go to school to learn that. But I believe I read that somewhere some one time, and I was like, oh, good, I'm never going to get breast cancer because I eat egg yolks all the time.
Well, and in talking about all of these things, we kind of brushed over it, but the other end of the spectrum for kids' nutrition, vegan diets for kids.
I don't like vegan diets for anybody, and I'll die on that hill. And anybody can come argue with me about how friggin' healthy it is. It's not.
Yeah, so
It's just not.
there are, I I know there are some countries where vegan diets are considered child abuse. If you are
Yeah.
forcing your kid to eat a
Mhm.
vegan diet, it is child abuse.
Yes, there are countries. Yes.
It's very hard to get a complete protein. It's very hard for kids to be able to get all of the nutrients that they need in a vegan diet, if not impossible.
Well, look, here's the thing. There are people who eat a vegan diet that do it correctly. Okay? Most people who do a vegan diet do not because they are not educated enough to know that you even need a complete protein for your body to process it as protein. They're like, I eat beans. Beans have protein. Beans do have protein. Beans are not a complete protein. So when you eat those beans by themselves, like if you just eat a plate of refried beans, your body processes none of the protein in those beans as protein in your body. So beans are good for you. They have very high fiber, all of that. So that is why red beans and rice are a popular dish, because adding the rice makes it a complete protein.
Well,
So, but most people who decide to go vegan don't know that. So they're not getting complete protein except for like in their tofu, like the
yeah.
soy.
And
Um, I don't give a shit. If you want to eat a bunch of soy, you go for it. But you're probably not getting enough protein that's being processed as protein on a vegan diet unless you've really, really studied it and learned a lot. And then it's very expensive to do. So, can you be healthy and even be jacked, like all muscular on a vegan diet? Yes. Very expensive, very difficult to do, takes a lot of thought. And it's not for children.
yeah, so if you would like to go for a vegetarian route, like if you're wanting to be vegan or vegetarian for ethical reasons, I could totally see a vegetarian route because you can still get complete proteins with things like dairy and
Absolutely.
eggs.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're the vegetarian that's nothing with a face, you can still be very healthy on that. And very healthy for a child's diet too.
yeah, but for if you're this way for ethical reasons, because I've heard the argument from people who are concerned about the way chickens are treated, and that's why they don't want to eat eggs because it's an ethical thing. Find someone locally who's comfortable with letting you see how they raise their animals. So,
Right.
like, we eat a ton of eggs. I have 57 chickens. They are, free range, they're fed well, they live a good life, they're protected. They are very happy animals. From an ethical
Right.
standpoint, they're living a good life. I would call those cruelty free eggs.
Yes,
You
for
know,
sure.
so
The
if it's
happy
an
chicken.
ethical thing, you can find usually someone locally where you can feel a little better about the choice from an
Well, and not
ethical
only that,
standpoint.
the eggs are going to be have better nutritional content anyway from a local person, a nice fresh egg,
Yes. So
and they
when
taste
you
better.
when you're gonna buy eggs, if you're gonna buy them from the store, this is a fun little nutrition tidbit. Um, Free range means nothing. Cage free really means nothing. Natural means nothing. Those are marketing terms that don't really have any legal backing to what they mean. So, your best nutrition if you're going with a store bought egg versus from somebody local um, is to get one that says pasture raised. Pasture raised eggs will actually be higher in folate and beta carotene and iron than your typical cage free range eggs from the store.
Did you know if you're a nicotine user that a lot of beta carotene is actually not good for you?
Interesting.
Hmm.
Why?
I'm not sure. I read it not that long ago because I have to take eye supplements because I'm gonna go blind probably. So the Preservision, they don't have beta carotene, and that's why they don't put the beta carotene in it, because like a lot of the eye supplements have a high beta carotene, because they don't put it in there in case somebody's a smoker, because it actually, yeah, a lot, and like you can eat a carrot or whatever, it's not going to bother you, but for I don't even remember what it does to you. I just read it, but I have the brain thing, and and I don't take beta carotene supplements, but I was like, wow, I didn't know that. But apparently, Preservision did know that and knew that a lot of people who were smokers probably have bad eyes. So,
um,
coincidence? I don't know.
One more thing I want to say on kids' nutrition, and then I think we'll go ahead and segue into part two, which will be like adult nutrition.
Yeah,
Uh,
but then are we just going to start another recording? Because it's really like,
yeah, I'm going to start a new recording.
yeah, okay.
Um, so, one last thing about kids' nutrition, because there was a big push in the 90s and the early 2000s, the Got Milk campaign. Everybody needs milk, you got to drink so much milk. Your kids do not need to drink any milk after age 1. The only thing after age 1 that kids are required to drink to maintain their health is water. So, you don't have to worry about milk after age 1 if you don't want to deal with that. But I think that's it for
I
part
don't
one.
drink milk. I don't like milk.
No, milk is
I
gross.
didn't drink milk as a kid either. They used to try to make me drink it. I was like, you can't make me drink it. And they couldn't.
I can do chocolate milk, but only in small amounts. It makes me feel sick.
It's just weird to me. Like, we're the only animal that drinks milk from another animal. It's friggin' weird.
And yet you're weird about breast milk too. So you're
Yeah,
just
'cause
weird
I
about
washed
milk.
my face with your boob milk soap. And it did make my skin soft, but you're my kid.
All right, on that note, let's outro this.